Kol Hamaarich Bechod. This is probably going to be the last class of this. Hooray! So, we're going through the first line of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Havad Elokeinu, Havai Echad. Till here, we have to have concentration of the heart. That's what the law says. What does that mean? Anybody who elongates the word of Echad, the word of one, their days and the years are going to be prolonged. They're going to be elongated. But the emphasis is supposed to be on the Dalid of Echad, and then, but as long as you don't rush through the Ches. Well, what is that all supposed to mean? We go through the whole breakdown of what we're supposed to be focused on when we say Shema. So we say Shema in the morning, we say Shema in the evening, and I was actually thinking something very good from this is, if you already say Shema morning and evening, great. If you don't say Shema twice a day, it's now would be a good thing to start doing that. And also, it brackets the day then, right? Because then in the morning, you can think about, okay, I'm going to apply this to my day. And when you say it at the end of the day, you can think about, did I do this, what I set out to do? And if not, I'll make a resolution, tomorrow to try to reapply myself toward it. And we could just take like little things at a time, to do this with. It doesn't have to be these massive changes we're going to make. But have I been remembering what Dalit stands for, that it's in all times, that God's in all times and all places? I've been applying that to all parts of my life. Where's a part of my life maybe I haven't been applying that to? For now, and I was going to say a bracha before I eat lunch, or whatever it's going to be, we can find little things that we can start applying it to. So, right. So we're going through this whole thing. We went through the whole breakdown, and we have the two names of the Shema Havaya and the Shema Elokim. Shema Havaya is God as infinity, beyond time and space. There's no measurement. Elokim is Hateva, it's nature. This is the life force of everything. The life force only comes about through the name of Havaya. That's where the actual power of creation comes from. But Elokim is the shield. That's the packaging that nature gives God, because we can't just handle it. We can't just stand in the sun. Lots of basic things. We go through how God renews creation, and it's all because creation is all about how God wants a dwelling place for him in this world. We know that, not just because we're told that, but we have the whole story with the angels. They fought, they didn't want to give the Torah to, why are the humans getting the Torah? They don't, mushy, squishy humans, how come they get the Torah? And then Moshe had to defend it, and eventually they're like, that's right. And the Torah came down to earth because this is where we have it. The news these days talking about UFOs and stuff. There's a general idea about whether there may or may not be life on other planets, but at the end of the day, the Torah was given on this earth, as in the actual globe Earth that we're on, what we call Earth, not just the Milky Way, the galaxy, but actual Earth itself. So they may or may not exist, but they don't exist like us, and they don't have purpose like us. That's for sure. There's no other Torah out there. There's only this one Torah from God, and it's here on this earth for us to practice and apply and change over this earth, the whole world in my hand. We have the idea, well, this kind of came before, about the idea of you have to have night and then day, part of what our divine service is, that we're spiritual darkness turning to spiritual light. These are all things we're supposed to have in mind when we say Shema Yisrael, Shema Elokeinu, Shema Echad. These are things we're supposed to think about the different names of God, and about how God created the world for it to be a home for him. Even thinking about how Moshe had to go and defend our having the Torah of the angels, which we've said it before, it's not just a matter of like the angels are just causing a ruckus because they're bored up there. Something we can learn from this is that the angels are proving to us, and they're showing us that the Torah is something that's worth fighting for. You don't just let it go. This has to be something that we believe in it so much, we want it so much in our lives, that we're willing to go out of our way and fight for it to make sure it stays in our lives. And then we have the whole thing of, for my flesh I see God. The same way that we know that there's a difference between a body with life and without life. There's something there. Maybe it's not something that we can really explain, but we know there's a difference. Even if people say metaphorically, they talk about my soul, but at the end of the day, it's a recognition, even subconsciously a recognition of something else that's there. Someone who has divine service, someone who believes in God, can say, this something else is actually the divine spark that's in me. It's the godliness, it's the divine soul that gives me life. And we are the microcosm for the macrocosm. The world itself, all of creation exists because there's a divine soul of creation, I guess you could say, that allows the world to exist. And then we honed in on the word Echad. We can actually see the oneness of God within creation, even though it seems that there's a lot of things that are created in this world. There's millions, billions of things that exist in this world. It's all within the oneness of God. It's not separate from him. Even for ourselves, how many skin cells do we have? We're not like, there's me and then there's all my skin cells. We don't do that. We're not me and my hair follicles. We don't do that. Me is everything that makes up me. So God in the world, everything is part of within God. They're not separate. But there seems like a lot. Well, you have a lot of hair in your head, thank God. It's not separate from you. This is still you. You don't differentiate all of your parts. So all of creation is still within the oneness of God, even though it seems like there's so much. We got from there, Tashkacha Pratis. God is intimately involved in all aspects of creation. God's the one who provides. We have to make what we call a keli. You have to make a vessel for God's blessings. The rain's going to fall. You have to have a reservoir to catch it. You can't catch the rain without a bucket, without a cup, without something. So God's going to give us blessings, and how are we going to catch it? How do you make our keli? The keli that we make is through connecting with God. Well, first of all, going to work, being honest in our business dealings, everything the Torah said, like, this is the way you got to work, being involved in kosher kind of work, all these kinds of stuff. God's the source of blessing. So we shouldn't run after other things and think that if I kiss up to this guy enough, then I'll get my promotion. No. Be nice to him, that's great, and be respectful, but he's not the one who gives you your promotion. He might be the conduit through which God gives you a promotion. But God's the one in charge. So let's not forget that. And then we have phrase with that, etc. Then we also went into the whole microcosm, macrocosm, that's the same way of Hashgacha Pratis. This is already last class. Hashgacha Pratis, we have the microcosm of each individual, but it's also the macrocosm of the Jewish people as a whole. In the same way God takes care of each one of us individually, God has always looked out for the Jewish people. Even if we don't fully understand how sometimes. But God has always looked out to us. But as a general thing, how are the Jewish people here? Our existence and our preservation makes no sense. Well, it's because God takes care of us. Then we went through the whole thing that we looked at the letter Daled, the Gematria, which Gematria of Daled is 4, and that represents the 4 corners of the world. The same way that the world can exist without the winds, it can't exist without the Jewish people. As in, it can't exist without the Jewish people fulfilling the godly mission of making the world a home for God. And then we also said that Me'ashem etzadei gever, from the Lord, man's steps are established. God sends people where they got to go. We all got the mission. We all got to elevate our part of the world, whatever our slice of world is, our slice of life that we have to elevate. How do we know where it is? Well, God sends us there. The flip side of that is because you are here, that means there's something here for you to elevate. We see it sometimes in extreme cases. Why did you end up with this random stopover in Nebraska? That wasn't on your itinerary. Well, there's something in Nebraska for you to elevate. Or I planned the trip to Spain for 2 years and I did it up in Spain. Well, God's approving of this trip because there was something in Spain for you to elevate. We see we're taking it and we could look at it from both ways. How did it end up in a random place? Why did something random happen to me? But also because these things, even the things that I planned happen to me, that means it's part of the divine plan. There's something here for me to elevate. And this is something you have to remember in all times and all places. The mission, the godly mission, the purpose of creation, it's like the 4 corners of the world. There's no place that you can't run. You can't run and you can't hide. You go to Australia, he's there. You go to the Outback, he's there. The mission is still there. You go to Antarctica, he's still there. He's there with the penguins, and he's there up in the Himalayas, and he's here, there, and everywhere. That's where he can be found. Especially if we reveal him there. He definitely can be found there. All the things that we learned until now, we said, till here, concentration of the heart is acquired. And it's like, what? This wasn't concentration of the heart. This was lots of intellectual pursuit and study. This was concentration of the mind, not concentration of the heart. It's like, well, that's the point. Every single person can take everything according to their understanding it, according to their capacity of understanding, and actually bring it into their heart. They can make it real for them. They can refine their character through that. They can actually make it something real that they feel within them. So concentration of the heart encompasses all of that. Everything we just did is supposed to become concentration of the heart. And then this is where we ended up last time. That we spoke about this verse from Tehillim that says, he who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not taken my name in vain, and has not sworn deceitfully. So what do you mean hasn't sworn deceitfully? What oath are you talking about? Well, the oath that he took before he was born. What oath before he was born? What oath was he given? Mashpia nosa ti tzadik val ti rasha. Before he's born, the angels say, be righteous and don't be wicked. And now we start the whole Tanya. So chapter 1, Tanya. This is the oath that's given. Also something that we learned in Tanya as a part of everything we went through. This whole thing about becoming a Beinoni. Be righteous and don't be wicked. It seems like a double language, but it's like, even if you can't be a tzaddik, even if you weren't born to be a tzaddik, at least don't be a rasha. All that is encompassed in this. But now we have a very basic question. This is the oath is given to the soul. Be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. And then the soul is put into a body, a physical body, a body that likes things in the physical world. So how on earth is the soul supposed to be held responsible for the body? You're going to make the soul responsible for the actions of the body? The soul is not in full control of the body. Not just that, but because you put another soul into the body, you put an Nefesh Bahamas there, the animal soul is in the body, and it's taking the wheel. And don't touch my radio while we're at it. The Nefesh Bahamas is like, well, look, you're going to be in this body. If you let the Nefesh Elokis stay in control, we're never going to eat, we're never going to sleep, we're never going to take care of ourselves. So, you know what? I'll take the night shift. And then the next thing you know, you wake up the next morning and your body's tired because you've been clubbing all night. And what just happened here? I thought you took the night shift. I did, and this was fun. I didn't want to sleep. That was boring. Boring. I want to go party. Now, you're going to tell the soul, the divine soul that you put into the body, remember that night shift? You're responsible for that. What is that supposed to mean? I didn't have the keys then. He kicked me out. How can the soul be held responsible for the body? And you're talking about a spiritual soul and a physical body. It can't just grab the keys even. It's not physical. What do you want it to do? You want it to pull the body, like actually pull the body? You can't do that. The word, but it says Mahi Hashavua, Shemashbian as a tzadik val tirasha. Mashbian, right? They make him swear. They give him an oath. That comes from the word of shvua. Shvua means an oath. But if you play a Hebrew boggle with it, a word that has similar letters in its root is the sin, the bet, and the ayin. Sova, which means satiation. The word from that, it's v'achalta v'savata. That's where we derive the commandment for benching from. It's from the Torah, v'achalta v'savata v'rachta es Hashem. You will eat, you'll be satisfied, and you will bless God. That's where we get the mitzvah of benching from. Where is this coming in here, the satiation? Because it's not just saying that the soul is given an oath. It's saying that the soul is satiated. The soul is not just sent down, the soul is satiated, as in it's made full with. It is given the powers that it needs to actually overcome the desires of the body. The soul is not just like dropped down, like, good luck! Give us a call if you need anything. Listen, you're going to go down into this body. You're going to be in the physical world. But you're not going down alone. We're going to give you all the equipment you need. And then mom comes and gives the sunscreen and the hat and the floaties. And the kid's like waddling out the door because mom packed too much stuff. So the soul kind of looks like that, except without the, I don't know if it's given floaties, but everything else is there. It's looking at this word that mashpiyanosa titzat about Russia. It's given an oath, swear to be a tzaddik and don't be a Russia. It is, the soul is satiated, and it is given the power to overcome so that it can be, be a tzaddik and not a Russia. And thereby, it's going to purify and refine the body and the natural soul, and it's going to turn into a vessel for God's will. The soul is not being sent down without the right kind of equipment, without the tools that it needs. And that's also something that's derived from within the phrase itself. Until here, concentration of the heart is required. So here we go again. We have more concentration of the heart. Well, because again, sort of what we started with the last time we came to this line, the concentration of the mind, which is everything we've done until now, has to enter the heart to develop and refine the character traits. So according to what we just said here, the soul is given the power to control and overcome the body and refine the body, etc. When we say until here, concentration of the heart is acquired, Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Shem Echad, then we went on this whole intellectual journey. We just bombarded our minds with all these different ideas and explanations and expositions, etc. What does this have to do with concentration of the heart? Because now that your mind has this all here, you got to bring it down to the heart. You got to actually make it real within yourself. It's not something you just leave churning in your brain and then you put it on a backfire somewhere and you get around to it again in a couple of years from now. Once it's in the mind and you think about it and you make it real, you bring it down into the heart. Bringing it down to the heart is going to refine us and refine our character and develop ourselves, again, so that we can be the vessel then for the godly will. That's why it says, all who expound upon, it says, Kol Hamaarich. Kol in Hebrew means all. Any, whomever, it's the big collective, which means anybody can do this and everybody should do this. Kol Hamaarich, that each extends the oneness according to his ability. Kol, all means any, whomever, each one who does this. Every single person according to how they can make this happen. Because we all have different intellectual capacities, but we all have intellectual capacities somehow, to some extent, to some level. According to who we are and what we can do, we got to bring this down and extend the oneness is bringing divine light into the world, bring godliness into the world. That's why the emphasis is on prolonging the Daled. Not just Echad, but also the Daled itself, because the Daled, which is 4, reminds us that this is true for all times, all places, and all people. No one is exempt from this. Like, oh, but I'm not a Moses, I'm not a holy scholar. But we said Kol Hamaarich. We didn't say only Moses needs to Ma'arich le'echad. Only he needs to prolong the one. No, every single person, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are. That's part of what, to like the Rebbe's teachings, was always, if you know Aleph, you teach Aleph. You don't have to know the entire Torah to be someone who can give and teach and affect someone else. If the only you know is actually Aleph, there's someone out there who doesn't know Aleph. That's what you can teach them, then you need to go and teach them that. You teach them Aleph. That's what you can do, so that's what you got to do. Same thing here. What can you do? How much can you do? Well, that's what you got to do. Well, we know from Tanya, we don't want to limit ourselves. Our soul's infinite. Try to take a step up. But where we are right now, we have what we can do right now. Where can I bring something that I've just been doing kind of by rote and I haven't really thought about so much and I haven't really brought God in so much? Where can I bring him in now? How can I make sure that wherever I'm going to be, in a neutral place, a random place, on a day-to-day basis, where can I bring him in? Put a tzedakah box on your desk at work, put a little sitter there or something like that. We don't all have to build the next building and put our name on it. These are little things that we could do that reminds us God is here. Now, we're almost done, we're not fully done. We do need to prolong the Daled, but as long as you don't rush through the Chet. What does that mean you don't rush through the Chet? Shelo yachtav b'ches. Don't rush through the Ches. What does the Ches have to do with anything? Let's go back to Gematria. Ches is numerically equivalent to the number 8. Count through is the 8th letter of the alphabet. Until you hit Yud is 10, and then after that it starts going by tens. So Yud, Kaf is 20, right? Lamed is 30. And then it hits the 100. So it's like 100, 200, 300, 400. So Ches is 8. Well, what does the 8 stand for? Daled is 4, and that's the 4 corners of the world, everywhere in the world. Okay, Mazel Tov, beautiful. What does the 8 stand for? The 8 stands for the 7 spiritual realms, and there's 1 physical world. Kind of like the 7 firmaments. But using firmaments, I use the word spiritual realms. Not the 4 worlds. That's the, but there's 7 spiritual realms and there's 1 physical world. This is what we're supposed to think of with the Chet. So what do you mean when we're not rushing it? Don't rush through the 7 spiritual realms of the 1 physical world. Well, what is that supposed to mean? Because we have to remember, when the soul comes into the body, it's got to go through the whole descent. It goes through these 8 worlds. Tanya focuses on 4 main worlds, but it goes through 8. It goes through the 7 spiritual realms until it comes to the 1 physical world. It goes through the 7 firmaments. They actually have, in the Gemara, they explain what's in each firmament. This is where the snow is made, or this is called a curtain layer, and this is called whatever. I'm throwing it out there as like, oh, it's a random thing, but they actually have explanations of like what each of the firmaments are. It seems like division of the sky, but it's spiritual. It's not necessarily physical. So the soul has to travel through the 8 worlds. So what are we not rushing through? We're not rushing through forgetting that it's not just that God is in all times and all places, that we remember with the Dalit. Don't forget that is the entire purpose of why the soul went through the 8 worlds to get to this physical world. That's why it went through the 7 spiritual realms to get to the 1 world. It is here, it went through this descent in order to subsequently cause an ascent of Torah mitzvos. The soul up above is unchallenged. As in, when the soul is in the higher worlds, there's no challenges for it. We saw that with Moshe and the angels. Oh, you guys have jealousy? You guys were slaves in Egypt? You guys, anybody kidnapping, business dealings? What's going on here? Well, no. So when the soul's up there, there's no challenge to it. It's very happy where it is. Life is perfect. It's very idyllic. To bask in the presence of God, we can sing to God. It's beautiful and perfect here. There's no shadows blocking the sun up above. Here, down here in this world, it is challenged by the body and the animal soul. It comes into the body, it's like, wait a second, where are you going? That's not what we had planned. No, come back. Let's go back to shul. And the body's like, bye, boring. We're going to find a beach party. We're going to a restaurant. We're going to get ice cream. Above, the soul is unchallenged. Here, it's challenged by the body and the animal soul. Also, the divine soul is like, wait a second. You can't just sit around anymore. Whereby it can prove its unwavering devotion to Hashem. Through the challenge that it has, it can prove its commitment to God by remaining and trying to influencing and redirecting the body to the godly cause. Up above, I see your devotion toward me. Now you're going to go and I'm actually going to give you a challenge. Go put you in the physical body and see what you can make of it. You're not just being dropped. You're going to have all the capacities you need for the body you're going to be in. You're going to have all the tools and everything like that. But you're going to have to work for this now. You don't just get to float up in the higher realms now. This is the result. What seems to be a descent, which is really can then be an ascent. Descent through the worlds allows for practical fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs and spiritual benefit. Up above, the soul can study Torah on whatever, the higher planes, studying Torah there. But down here is your practical fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. That goes back to Tanya. What was the whole punchline of everything of Tanya? Is that you got to do another mitzvah. You got to make it happen. While you're refining yourself spiritually, that's great and wonderful and keep doing that. But you still got to do Torah mitzvahs. Because that ultimately is what we're here for. The soul can only do that if it comes down through the 7 worlds, so the 1 physical world. Now could do the practical fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, which you cannot do up above. That is the one thing that we said before, the one thing that a body can do, or a soul in a body can do, that none of the higher spiritual creations can do that. An angel can't do it. The souls that are up above can't do this. Nobody but a soul in a body in the physical world can actually do Torah mitzvahs. There's also a spiritual benefit that comes from that. There's a great merit that comes from that. And that's something that's only achieved and realized down in this world. And only here, as in this physical world, can the soul fulfill the purpose of creation. Up above, it can study Torah all day long. It never makes a mistake. It's not in the body that's got its own agenda. It doesn't have to fight against the Nefesh Bahamas, the animal soul. It doesn't have to fight against it. There's no influences. There's no nothing. Everybody is just part of the godness, and everybody's happy to be part of the godness. It's wonderful and it's beautiful up there. But that is not the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation, which we know, going back to Moshe and getting the Torah, is for this physical world to be a world that will be transformed, a world that will be elevated, a world that will be illuminated by the godly light. The soul cannot do that up above. It can only do that here in this world. So when we think, don't rush through the ches, don't forget what we're doing here. Don't rush through the 7 spiritual worlds, the 1 physical world. Don't forget that the soul had to go through a huge descent. It's like, oh yeah, Torah's for here, there, and everywhere. That's where it can be found. The soul went through a process. The soul went down to this world, and very specific things that it can achieve in this world that it can't be achieved in the world above. So to bear this in mind, don't forget that. Don't rush through that. The whole Maamar kind of wraps up. This is from Iyov. So Iyov is Job. It says, Halo tzava le'enosh alei aretz uchmei sacher yamav. Is not man on earth for a limited time, and are his days not like the days of a hired worker? As in, Rashi is the foremost commentator on the Torah. Rashi says, my commentary is for a 5-year-old. As in, like, I'm going to answer the questions a 5-year-old would ask. And then you learn Rashi and you're like, you know some very precocious 5-year-olds. And the best way to kind of understand is that Rashi is explaining the literal interpretation of the Torah. Most of Rashi's explanations don't get into Kabbalah. Sometimes Midrash, but not really. Most of it is just like the face value, I guess you could say, even though obviously there's an incredible amount of depth to it. There's many commentators on the Torah, but usually if there's only going to be one or two commentators, Rashi is going to be one of the ones. Unglus is the other one you see a lot of, but Rashi is like the staple to understanding Torah is Rashi. You need Rashi to understand Torah. Anyway, so what does Rashi say about this? About the hired workers? A hired worker, his time is limited. I'm hiring you on for a job now. This is the job. You're not just here. You have a very specific job I'm hiring you for. So the same way a hired worker has limited time, man down on this earth also has a limited amount of time. We're only here for a specific amount of time. We have a very specific allotted amount of time to achieve what we're here to achieve. And what we're here to achieve is not another PhD. I mean, if you want it, go for it. PhD is good, but it's a means to an end. It's not an end unto itself. The end, the ultimate end, is bringing God into the world. Remembering why the soul went through the entire descent of the 7 spiritual realms to the one earth. We also have this, which is from Tehillim. It says, Yamim Musar, days have been formed. Similar kind of idea, the days have been formed, as in each person has been allotted. There's a measurement, a certain amount of time that's for you, and that's your time. And you only have X amount of time to do things. It's like when you're older and you kind of remember yourself as a teenager, you're like, why was I so obsessed with X? It was so irrelevant. Tamagotchis. Do you guys remember those Tamagotchis? I had a friend who had like 15 of them, and all day long, like, she was just feeding these Tamagotchis. It's like, what? Were we even, what? And that's what we did. Part of it, well, because you're a kid, so you're interested in Tamagotchis. What other extinct toy? There's a lot of stuff that you're into, and you're kind of like, oh, come on. So you think about man's time as like the higher worker, or Yom Tzar days have been formed. When we're older and wiser, unfortunately we have to wait till we're older and wiser, but please God we can realize it sooner. But remember, life is limited. Even though we think we're going to live forever, and please God we will, Mashiach's going to come and it's going to be great. We don't have to worry about that. But at the same time, we only have a certain amount of days. We only have a certain amount of time to accomplish. So are you going to spend your life running after Tamagotchis which don't even exist anymore? Are you going to spend your money collecting Beanie Babies which crash and aren't worth anything? Or are you actually going to put your money and your time to something that actually really matters? So there are things we have to do on a day-to-day basis. We have to feed ourselves. We have to go to work. But we remember that that's not it. We don't make money just because having money is important. We make money because now we're going to use that money for Torah mitzvahs. We're going to give tzedakah. We're going to buy a nicer siddur for ourselves or for somebody else. We're going to buy a nice candlestick, whatever it's going to be. It goes back to the whole thing of finishing the sentence. Moshe told Paro, make people go so they may serve me. Tikkun olam, the whole thing with Tikkun olam, people forget that there's an end to that sentence. It's not just, we're going to fix the world. We're going to fix the world with machal shindal yud, to make it a kingdom of God. There's an end to the sentence. It's in the second paragraph of Aleinu. People sing through. They don't realize, like, oh, yeah, hey, you know what you just said there? That's the Tikkun Olam phrase. That's where it comes from. So there's an end. There's a punchline to it. And here we have, this is from the book of Devarim. The Maamar only has part of it, but I just pulled out the whole pasuk. It says, V'shamarta es ha-mitzvah v'es-ha-chukim v'es-ha-mishpatim asher anechem mitzavcha hayom la'asosam. You shall therefore observe the commandments, the statutes, and the ordinances, which I command you this day to do. As in today. You got to get it done today. Hayom la'asosam. Today you got to get it done. So what do we mean by don't hurry through the ches? Don't forget the truth of what this world is about and why it was created. When you're saying Shema, and you're like, yeah, everywhere we go, we have to bring God into the world. Great. Don't rush through the ches. Don't forget what the first part of the sentence is. Don't forget the first part is remembering the truth of this world and why it was created. So now we go. What does it mean? Kol Hamaarich Bechod. Anyone who elongates, going back to the sages in the Gemara, anyone who elongates echad, this word of echad, which now we went through. Echad means one versus yachid, which is singular. The oneness of God with all creation. The ches, which stands for the 7 spiritual realms and the 1 physical world. And the dalet, which stands for the 4 corners of the world. Anyone who elongates the echad, these aspects, not just the word itself, but the aspects of the word itself, whoever prolongs pronouncing, but also prolongs in his mind and brings it into his heart, the word of echad, his days and years are prolonged. So whoever dedicates himself to extending the oneness, publicizing Hashem in the world, as in Torah mitzvos, getting the job done, remembering why we're here, remember that God is for here, there, and everywhere, remembering that the soul went through, there was a travel of the 8 worlds, the soul to be, well, the 8th world that we're here now, and everything that goes along with it. Hashem will grant longevity, illuminating his years with the light of Torah, and success in achieving the true intent of creation. Please God to have very long years on this earth, but it's not just that, it's also fulfilling years and years of purpose. Years that are filled with light, with meaning, and success in doing what we're put here to do. That is the end of the Maamar.